Welcome back to the Stack Exchange podcast, where we cast our thoughts and let our arguments resolve. I'm your host, Tristan.
And I'm your co-host, Tyler. Today, we're going to be talking about the escalation of power in dedicated pods, kind of like an arms race, and how playing to power should work, and a little bit about Proxy, since we are players who use proxies.
Exactly. I think the easiest way to talk about this is kind of an anecdote of what our own dedicated play group used to look like. When we all started playing, we each found about a $60 deck, bought it, sleeved it up, and had our first commander night. And I think that this was kind of the first step in the escalation process, because even though we all agreed on a budget deck, we had one player who decided to build a poison counters deck, which was much scarier than arguably any of our other decks.
Yeah, and to preface, we did not have any magic experience, so poison counters, we didn't know anything about that.
We didn't know how powerful it would even be. Obviously, it was a game-winning effect, but we didn't know how fast that could take over, especially in a pod that has budget decks that can't put threats out.
Yeah, we had no idea. The next deck I bought after that was a mill deck, because I thought that was going to be amazing, and
No.
a $30 mill deck is not amazing.
No.
Let's just say that much.
Exactly.
So our power level idea was really skewed in the beginning.
Exactly.
But that poison deck kind of started the arms race. This might be my fault. I hated that poison deck. So in retaliation, I built the number one commander at the time, Atraxa, as a poison counter deck. And that was just kind of to spite the player who was using the poison deck. And this is also what caused Tristan to start to lean away from poison. I don't think he's ever built a poison deck.
No.
You've splashed poison. We've talked about this previously. Splashing poison and infect and stuff works as a finisher. And I also haven't really built a poison deck since this Atraxa deck. So this kind of leaning away from poison counters, and the fact that he just got out of working a summer, so he had some more money, started to make him leaning towards the more expensive, higher power decks, compared to our $50 budget decks.
Yeah, exactly. In this process, I created a $1,000 Edgar Markov deck with all the, of course, Mox. Mana Crypt was legal at the time. Everything was in there. I completely just proxied the whole thing. I mean, we play with proxies. We're pretty open about that. I think proxies are great, but obviously this is a situation where it went wrong. I also had what was just about a CEDH Crick deck that I was playing into these $100 casual commander decks. And I mean, the issue was that none of us were playing to a power level, right? Even if Crick was the same budget as other decks, obviously he's going to go quicker, and he's going to just stomp people with combos.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, as new players, we didn't have a concept of any power levels or anything. We didn't know how to have a proper Rule Zero conversation about deck strength. We just kind of picked decks and we're like, yeah, I want to play this, or no, I don't want to play against that.
Right.
And this kind of started that arms race I mentioned earlier within our pod, as we slowly escalated in strength of our decks, continually rising up as we made better and better decks, so that we could, since we didn't have a power level idea, it was okay, I'm going to build this deck to play at this power level. And then we'd overshoot it, or we'd undershoot it a lot.
Yeah.
So we ended up just slowly increasing the power level. We didn't know how to be yeah, this deck will play at this level.
Right.
It was just put everything that is good, no matter how expensive, into this deck, so I can beat this other deck that has everything good and expensive in it.
Right. Or a budget deck, completely budget deck, running maybe the second best in slot for everything, and then splash a deflecting SWAT or Fierce Guardianship in there. The crazy power level cards are overshadowing everything else in the deck, because we were oh, that's a good card, and we know that.
An example of that was I built a Will Scion of Peace deck, which, let's be honest, was not great.
Yeah.
There's one card that made this deck such a threat at the table to everyone, and that was the fact that I put Immortality Beacon in this deck. So I'd double my life, and then I'd cast some crazy X spell. That one card made this deck like an arch enemy. As soon as someone saw I had Immortality Beacon, or were even convinced I could cast Immortality Beacon, like if I had, what is it, like 5 mana or
7,
something,
6, yeah, something.
they were
there.
just like, sorry, you've got an Immortality Beacon. We gotta send you down to like 10 HP.
Right.
And when I would cast it, everyone would be like, "We told you."
Yeah.
And it was just really funny because I didn't know how power levels worked. Like, the rest of the deck wasn't good, but that one card spiked the threat while its power level was still low. So people wanted to play their higher power decks into an arguably worse deck.
Right. It's about like consistency, right? Because people will see a deck for what its best turn could be, and then they'll combat you, try and take you out of the game, name you arch enemy early on based off of that one play, whereas 90% of the time you're running a $30 crappy deck that could go infinite any moment, right? That's why it's important to kind of smooth out your power levels, take out those random infinite combos that you slot into that $50 deck. Obviously, how we were playing Commander is not how it should have been played, and it ended up just blowing up until we finally figured out how to play to correct power levels and let everyone enjoy the game that is Commander. I think that this may be a shared experience between many dedicated pods of specifically new players, and I also think it's a perfect segue into talking about power levels. I think that this is something extremely important. Obviously, the introduction of the Commander bracket levels is something that is going to be making this conversation a lot easier among new play groups and sitting down at a Commander night. But this is not something new. This is something that's been going on since Commander was a thing.
Yeah, like, not too long ago, we had the, like, 10 power, like, the scale of 10 power, which you'd think since it's more detailed, it should be better, but then you'd sit down and everyone's like, yeah, I got a 7.
I've got a 7. Yeah,
I've got a 7.
I mean, this is a high 7. It wins on, like, turn 5, but then maybe someone else's 7 is winning on turn 9, right? It was hard to really be specific, but that's what we had back then, and I think that was, like, good and ultimately helped the play experience. The most important part of Commander is that it's a social format, and it's not something that you should sit down with the best deck and try. I mean, obviously you should play to win, but it's not rewarding to beat power 2 decks with your power 4 Commander deck, right? There's no set. Maybe you'll feel the high for a minute, but then realize, oh, I just have a stronger deck in general. I'm not even a better deck builder necessarily.
Yeah, that's also part of the reason why I like lying about the power level or being like, technically it's a power 2 when it plays at like a power 3 or 4. Like, you're not going to get much out of that. Like, yeah, sure. You built a deck that's at bracket 2 and it plays at a 4 and you get to play it into a bracket 2 like tournament, like good for you. But if you're going to do that kind of stuff, like, you're going to have more fun playing into, like, a bracket 4 kind of play group.
I think that power level is something that I've struggled with a lot because it's something that I constantly want to be on the top end. If I have a card in my deck, why would I not want the better version of that card? I also think that this can lead to my number one tip of making Commander decks at any single power level. If you have a deck that wants to do a thing, don't do that thing with all the best cards and also all the staples. If you're building an Is It Spellslinger deck, but you want it to be at power 3 or 2, you don't need to throw Jessica's Will in there or Deflecting Swat or Fierce Guardianship in there. You can do it with worse cards and build to a lower power level. And I think it's so tempting as a new player or an inexperienced player to just slot those cards in instantly without thinking about the repercussions of it.
Yeah, I agree. That's one of the best ways I do to build lower power decks is I build to a budget. I always build at a certain budget, and maybe it's not like a overall deck budget, but like a card budget. Like, I'm not going to put any like $30 cards in this deck. A way to smooth out the power level is just lowering the cost of your cards, because usually the better cards cost more. And I also don't typically run the best card in slot for most stuff. I don't put Fierce Guardianship in anything anymore. I don't typically put Craterhoof anything anymore. I don't run Great Henge in almost any deck. Like, some of the cards that is, like, objectively better, I just don't put in there. I think it also helps that I don't build any like super meta commanders anymore. I like my niche jank stuff, like my Lazov Wearer of Faces that uses weird, really bad cards to get better, or my Zada Hedron Grinder deck, which is literally just a ton of buff spells, and then little guys that make more little guys. I don't run the best inside. Okay, maybe Zada's not the best. I do run Underworld Breach and Jessica's well in there, but...
It's a power 4 deck, though.
Yeah, it's a power 4 deck.
Right, that's where you want to be with it. If you want to be at power 4, throw the Game Changers in, throw a combo in there. You have a power 4 deck built around a strong archetype, which is like buff and tokens and mono red. It's going to be good, and that's fine.
Yeah, I built him with the intention of making him as powerful as possible, and he ended up being budget as well. I'll talk about this in a separate video. I plan to do a video talking about how the price of a card doesn't mean it's better,
right?
For instance, but I'll talk about that a bit more. But essentially, I made a really budget deck that played at bracket 4.
Right.
And the deck originally was under $100.
I think that I can kind of piggyback off of this point where a bracket 4 deck isn't a $300, $500, $700 deck. It's also not a $100 or $150 deck. It's what you make it. You can have a bracket 4 at $100, or you could have a bracket 4 at $1,000, right? It just depends on the cost. Sorry, it just depends on the power level of the cards you're putting in there. A good example of this is to kind of reject putting good stuff into your deck and look for synergy. Something that is generically powerful might have no synergy at all in a deck. A lot of the times, if you're looking on EDHREC, they'll have a measure of synergy in the deck, and you can look and see that most of these cards, Cyclonic Rift, Fierce Guardianship, Deflecting Swat, Deadly Rollick, are going to be negative synergy percentage because they're being slotted into decks that don't get benefit off of them. This, however, can also be the reverse. I don't play Cyclonic Rift in just any blue deck. Obviously, it can go in any blue deck. It's probably one of the best board wipes in the format, but I'm building an Azorius Tameshi deck where I want to be bouncing non-land permanents. Perfect. I'm going to slot Cyclonic Rift into there and let it be a higher power deck. I'm not going to throw Cyclonic Rift in every deck, but Cyclonic Rift does what I want in that deck. It's a synergy piece. It's not just a standard good thing. In a deck where I want treasure tokens, I'll throw Smothering Tithe in there. I'm not going to throw Smothering Tithe in every single white deck just because I can. And it's an amazing card, of course. It's a powerful card. It's a game changer. So it's going to be doing powerful things, but that doesn't mean I'm going to put it in every single deck. The most important thing when building, and this is just a general tip and I can kind of build off this, Tyler was already kind of alluding at this with budget, is just restrictions. If I want to build at a power level 4, I'm going to no holds barred, right? I'm going to have no restrictions except maybe no CEDH cards. But if I want to build at a bracket 2, I'm going to limit myself on budget. I'm going to limit myself on staples, right? Again, if I'm building a budget bracket 3 Izzet deck, I'm not going to throw Cyclonic Rift, Fierce Guardianship, and Jessica's Will in there. Because I don't, even though I could have a game changer or two in there, I don't want them in there. I don't want it to be defined by this one good card. Another argument for that is cutting out your random infinite combos. This is something I'm especially guilty of when building early on, is I would have a Rakdos deck, budget deck, doing random things, and then all of a sudden an Exquisite Blood and Sanguine Bond in there to just go infinite, because what the heck, why not? But this causes your deck to be judged by its best day, when it's going to be playing at its medium to worst day most of the time, especially on a budget. So if you're finding yourself hating the decks you're playing, or constantly saying, well, my deck's not that good, but these people are still targeting me, figure out why they're doing that. Maybe it's because they saw you go off with that Sanguine Bond and Exquisite Blood combo, or you cast Approach of the Second Sun twice in a draw deck when you have no other real win con in there. There's no reason to have these insane combos in there when you're playing at a budget.
I could agree. That kind of loops back to the fact about my Will Scion of Peace deck that had Immortality Beacon. I no longer put that card in any deck, even if it's good. I look at it, it calls to me like the Goblin Mask from Spider-Man, and I choose not to put it in my deck because I know what happens. This idea of knowing that people will judge your deck based on its best day Similar to how those decks are judged based on their best day, someone in our dedicated play pod has a Kalia the Vast deck, and it is based. Every single Kalia trigger is judged like he's putting out Master of Cruelties. For those of you who don't know, when Master of Cruelties is attacking and it isn't blocked, it reduces that player's life total to 1, and he assigns no combat damage for that turn. So, this is a one-shot combo if you don't block him or Kalia. And for reference, he has First Strike Death Touch, so anything you block him with is going to die, and Kalia has Flying. So if you swing this into like an open board, Kalia's a 4-drop, so you could get her out on like turn 2 or 3, depending on how you ramp her. But that can literally be a one-shot combo. So every single Kalia trigger is seen as a threat, like you have Master of Cruelties. On top of that, every time you tutor for a creature, it is expected that you are tutoring for Master of Cruelties, which makes that the threat of that trigger even more so.
I think smoothing out your threat levels can also help with the backlash against tutors. A lot of people hate on tutors because you're 9 times out of 10 just going to tutor for the same thing and the best thing in your deck every time. But if you cut out your infinite combos and the creatures that are going to be putting you way over the top, creatures, cards, whatever you're tutoring for, way over the top, then that tutor can grab what you really need every time. This can look more like a toolbox deck that's going to be helping you out in situations, help your deck keep going, keep your board state, shut someone down who's going off without seeming like the arch enemy. I think overall, talking about power levels is really a big benefit to the proxy debate as well. I personally am a huge proponent of proxies. I think that they are amazing in every single way. I see almost no downsides besides people who sell them as real Magic cards. That is the only downside to proxying. Even Magic the Gathering, Wizards of the Coast as a company has said you can run proxies as long as you don't sell them and you're not playing in like one of their dedicated stores. The main argument against proxies is often, oh, they're just going to proxy out the best card. They're going to, before Mana Crypt was banned, right? Proxy Mana Crypt and throw it in any deck. Proxy out, Cabal Coffers and Urborg, right? But that's not necessarily wrong. The wrong thing is people putting it in a deck that doesn't have the power level to play those cards. If those cards aren't matching power level, it's going to create an issue. If I have a $30 deck where I own every single card except Deflecting Swat, and I proxy up Deflecting Swat, people are going to be like, oh, of course you just wanted to play Deflecting Swat into a power 3 or a power level 2 pod, right? But proxies aren't the problem. It's the people who are lying about what their power level is or not building decks with the right power level in mind.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think something that everyone who, even if you are for the most part against proxies, this is something that was mentioned in another YouTuber's video. It was the Magic Mirror podcast with Trinket Mage. He talked about how everyone should allow everyone to proxy lands.
I agree.
Lands get expensive. They're needed in every deck, and you should be allowed to proxy a mana base so that you can actually play the game. Like, if you're getting color skewed and you just can't play out cards because you don't have the right colors in, let's say, like a 4-color or 5-color deck, then what's the point? Like, of course, a 5-color mana base is going to be expensive. Everyone wants, every deck is going to need the lands that are in 5-color decks because they have every color. So I feel like proxies should definitely always be allowed for when it comes to like lands, because they're just such an essential part of the game, so they get too expensive.
I agree fully, and I think that this is especially prominent when it comes to the OG dual lands. Ultimately, they're like $300 cards that just have for 2 colors and can be fetched like a shock land. Why would I pay $300 for a slightly better shock land? I don't want to see people's budget decks falling on their face because they played their Temple of Epiphany tapped into their tapped life land. That's not fun for me to watch because those are the cards they can afford. I want it to fall on its face if it's bad deck building or I remove the best threat on the board. I don't want to see a deck not do its thing. I want to stop a deck from doing its thing because I'm a good Magic player, or watch it go off and watch this awesome synergy built out of 2-cent cards. I don't think that mana bases should restrict anyone, and I don't think seeing an OG dual land should make anyone a threat. It's just a land that taps for 2 of their colors.
I 100% agree. I think it's kind of dumb that they're on the reserve list. They are, let's be honest, they are good. The OG dual lands are awesome. I think you should pull them off the reserve list. Like, I'd love to have them. There's no reason they should be, like, so expensive. It's just, it's something that I feel like is fine to be proxied. And like you said, it's not something like someone pulling out a Gaia's Cradle. Like,
yeah.
Or a Urborg. Like, this doesn't really make you a threat.
Yeah.
It's literally a land that taps for 2 mana and you can fetch it. Well, not 2 mana, taps for 2 colors. And it comes in untapped. It functions the same as a lot of other 2-color lands that come in untapped and can be fetched, except it just doesn't have, like, a condition to it.
We're broke.
Yes! We're broke! We're college students. We have no money, and I think proxies are perfect for that. You're broke. I don't want to gatekeep the format because you're poor. Yeah. I think that's dumb. If that happened, we'd still be playing with our awful, like, $50 decks. I don't want to gatekeep people because you have to pay rent and eat food. I think proxy up your decks. I personally very rarely I very rarely proxy up a deck that I don't have the intention of one day buying. Like,
or at least testing out to buy, right? Like,
yeah.
I don't want to commit $150 to a deck I might not even like before I get the chance to proxy it up. But if I proxy up a $150 deck and I like it, I'm going to buy that because that's something I enjoy playing and I want to have those cards in paper.
Exactly. Having the cards in paper allows you to play at tournaments in person, and I like to have the physical cards. That's something I enjoy, but I don't ever, like, proxy up anything that I don't really have the intention of buying. I think the only time I did that, I now have the intention of buying that deck. Originally, it was my Azuri deck. It's like a $300 or $400 deck. $300 deck. Oh, I think it's actually went down, probably because Crater Hoof got reprinted. I think that's in this deck. Yeah, so it's like a $300 deck. I don't have the plans to buy it anytime soon. I need to have a lot of money. But when I built it, I didn't have the plans to buy it, but now I kind of do. I enjoy this deck. It's probably like my second favorite deck after my Zada deck. I just love how I built it. But if you don't really... Yeah, I think proxying is fine. I'm poor. A lot of people who play this are also college students, poor. So please put food on the table before you buy your Magic deck. Don't starve yourself. Print it out with, like, printer paper if you got to get your proxies. That's what we do. We just slide those in front of another Magic card. So that's my thought on proxies. Like, I think they're totally fine, and it makes the format a lot more accessible.
It's always super interesting to me because we're both in college. We both go to the same college. We both participate in the college commander nights. And seeing the environment and the culture around proxying there makes sense to me. No one there wants to buy a $500 deck, but of course you want to play at that power level, so that's fine. But going from that to, like, a dedicated Magic game store where they allow no proxies, it's just crazy to me. I think that people should be open-minded about proxies more than they are, and the real problem are the people who are lying about the power level they're playing at. It's not the fact they printed up a Mana Crypt or whatever, right? It's the fact that they're playing with it in the wrong pod. Additionally, I agree that you should probably proxy up decks that you're willing to buy. I do the same thing for the most part. Also, to test out a deck, even if you don't think you'd like it, maybe it's worth it to try something you've never tried before, but you don't want to risk $100 on it. Additionally, the only time I would proxy a deck and not buy it is a CEDH deck, because I want to play that deck. I have no intention of really buying these reserve list insane CEDH level cards, but obviously the CEDH community plays at that power level, and they're not an official format. Almost every single CEDH tournament is not regulated by Wizards of the Coast, and they are one of the most open communities with proxies. I think we should look to them for how to use proxies. Everyone wants to play at the CEDH power level if you're involved in that scene, and everyone proxies. No one not no one. Very few people are walking around with $10,000 decks. Because why would you? Hopefully this can frame the proxy debate a little bit better in a more positive light. I am a huge proponent of proxies, like I've already said, and I think that the Commander brackets are setting up really good conversation to talk about power level and Rule Zero, which is the most important thing of a social format like Commander. If you have any opinions, feel free to drop them down in the comments below. We'd love to further discuss this with any of our viewers, and I hope you gained a little bit of information from listening to us talk.
Yeah, so if you enjoyed the video, feel free to drop any comments you had. We love to discuss stuff. If you'd like to get more notifications whenever we upload, feel free to subscribe and turn those notifications on so you can get the notifications. We'd always appreciate a like, help the channel grow some more, but I don't know. If you don't want to like it, I don't care. So, well, thank you for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video.
Bye, guys.
Bye.